Welcome to the World United. Welcome to the World United.
We talked about, each of you talked about creating a space for success. And I'm just gonna put out a statement, and I'd like you to expound from your perspective about this. So all animals are amazing geniuses in their own right. The problem is we often judge fish by their ability to climb a tree. Todd, go.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for a fish to climb a tree. Yeah, and if we really looked at that, then we would think a fish is no good. But we're all built and meant to do a certain thing. I think we all have our own abilities and talents. And just listening to the panel here, I'm just blown away at the information and the knowledge. This has been beautiful. Speaking of success too, I think one of the best definitions of success that I've ever heard is that it's waking up in a good mood. And because we can have all these things and all these stuffs in our lives, and if I'm waking up in a bad mood, what's the point? And so I think when we find our purpose, and a fish's purpose is not to climb a tree. The purpose is to swim and to explore the oceans and stuff like that. And so getting past my drug addiction, I had lost my purpose. I had lost a basketball scholarship that I had earned. And, when that happened, I just thought my life's over. I don't want to live anymore, because that was my identity. And I had to find my purpose. And, looking back on it now, I'm so grateful that I took my first drink of alcohol when I was 11 years old, because that led to me actually sitting here with you guys today talking. And I really do believe life happens for us, and it opened up a whole new purpose in my life. And I get to share, and help people, and, find their purpose and to overcome their addictions and things like that. And so I think we all play a crucial role, and we all have our own purposes, and they're a little different. And so we all have our own talents and our creativities, because we are creators, like everyone has been pointing out. And so that's kind of how I'd answer that. I know that's kind of a long-winded answer, but thanks for letting me share that.
No, that's beautiful. And because you do have to head out, I'm going to double up with the second question, and then we'll move on, and please hear from the others as well on this. But I would I'm going to have a full discussion on education. So we talked about the I am concept that you shared, the creativity, the word usage, and then the leadership principles that Bruce shared. I'm interested to hear how in education can we create more unity consciousness, because that's the overarching principle that we're focused on in this festival, this Global Transformation Festival. And there's so much division in the world. And how can, since this is spirituality and education, let's just kind of address that in our education philosophies or structures. How can we bring about more unity consciousness?
That's a great question. And I'm a very simple person. I like to simplify things, because I think there's power in simplicity. I think we're never more fully alive than when we're connected. And I agree with you, Sean. There's a lot of division in the world right now, and it's so unfortunate. And I like to break it down to a very simple thing. And it even sounds corny because we say it, but I think it comes down to love. I really do. And educating how powerful that is. And so, I was reading in a book, and if I can share this, I'll be quick, but I was reading in The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. This book is, at one point, was the #1 best-selling book in history. And there's a story behind it, but I was reading this book, and there was a line in this book that just hit me so hard. You know how like sometimes you read something and it just grabs you? And it was so simple. It said, God doesn't have love. God is love. And I thought, wow, there it is, And then like every time I do something nice for someone, if I, like even holding the door for someone and I say, hey, have a good day. In that moment, they felt good. I felt good. Or in other words, we both felt love, or we connected with love or higher power, or however you look at that. And I think that educating people on how simple it is, if we just reach out of ourselves and show a little love to someone, how that will connect us on a level. And I know there's, and I'm sure everyone else is going to chime in and they've got a lot of great information on this, but for me, I like to simplify it. If I want to connect with God or my higher power, or connect with you, Sean, or anyone on the panel, I'm going to give away a little bit of love. I'm going to share a nice comment. I'm going to tell you how appreciative I am to be on here. And I know that sounds almost too simple, but I'm telling you, connection is when when I feel most alive. In my world, connection's the opposite of addiction. By Johann Hari is the one who really, pinpointed that in the TED Talk. But I really believe that that's how we do it.
Beautiful. Yes. And I have to completely agree with you. It's no simple thing to be simple. We like to complicate things, right? And to really bring it down to brass tacks and make it applicable. So thank you for that. Beautiful, beautiful.
You bet. And I'm sorry I have to bounce out. I've got a client who's struggling. Sean, I love you. And everyone on the panel, I loved your words. It makes me want to be a better person. So thank you. God bless all of you. Thank you for all your good works.
Thank you, Todd. We'll talk again soon. So with those, now you guys had a moment to think about what I just shared. Let's just start out with this idea that all animals are geniuses in their own right. The problem is we're judging fish by their ability to climb trees. Bruce, you want to address that, and then we'll jump over, and please jump in, Rachel and Janet.
Sure, I'll jump. Appreciate that. You said something very fascinating, and I'm going to be very, hopefully, succinct, a little bold, and maybe even a little political. I agree. I think I mentioned it earlier, every creature has its own unique and distinct pathway towards what it is. I think even saying everything has its genius is still connotes an idea of one being better or smarter or above somebody. So let's just say everything has its unique opportunity to fulfill the measure of what it is. And I love Todd's example because it may very well be that one of his purposes is to help other people manage the challenges that they've had. And if Christ, let's say, or others who have suffered have had to descend below to understand, and Todd has had the chance to descend into a place to understand, he has a genius in that capacity to serve in a way that other people don't. I think we're struggling in this world right now where if we all have to be the same, then what we're doing is we're dividing a race to the bottom. Everybody has to be the same. And the idea of equality versus equity is a very terrifying notion. When I think about fulfilling the measure of one's capacity, I think about 5 elements. What are the inputs they do? What's the process they use? What's showing up? And what are their feedback loops so they can adjust their experiment on how they engage the world? And when you put the idea of equality at the output level and not at the input, we're in big, big trouble. We do not recruit small, short accountants into the NBA for a reason. We do not bring people that can't skate who are runners. When I think about unique talents, everybody needs to search and hunt for. If God doesn't make the same genetic code twice, it must mean that we must hunt for the genius we have within us and serve the problem we were designed to serve. That's fulfilling the capacity of our measure. And when it comes to unity consciousness, I'll wait for that, but I'll continue that there, and I'll stop there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. And Rachel, Janet, either of you.
Yeah, I can jump in here. I've appreciated Todd's and Bruce's comments. And when you first posed this question to Todd, my wheels started turning, and I started, my first thought was, okay, well, we are the human race. We aren't a bunch of elephants and pigs and birds and whatever, like with looking at us, right? Humanity. And yet, well, and before I go there, I will say that I do believe that there are certain points in our existence, our eternal existence, that we do have certain, like there is a mission that we share in common, right? But then at the same time, something that I've been thinking about these last few minutes is the fact that we are all in different spaces, if you will, of our spiritual evolution, of who we are as spiritual beings, that we are experiencing such unique things, and it puts us in different spaces. And so instead of it looking like I think, Bruce, you had said something about this, like one being better than the other, or someone being smarter than the other, or more skilled than the other. Instead, I find that there are just so many facets of who we are and what makes up our spiritual growth, as well as our physical growth, and together as a soul, what we are experiencing. And so instead of looking at things in a flat perspective, whether it's just on a linear scale, or if we're looking up and down, these certain spheres of looking at our existence, I've been appreciating trying to look at our life experiences, spiritual, physical, of the soul, and being able to flip it and look at it in different angles, because we are experiencing things like, what if a certain life experience that we're having, it really isn't on this linear scale, but it's more of a spiral? Or what if we're looking at it from a sphere? Or what if it's these different dots? Like, there's just so many lenses that we can look at life through, which is beautiful. I think there's a real design, a divine design to that. The fact that we can see these life experiences in different ways. And so where one individual may seem to be mastering one thing, another person may be experiencing that same thing just from a different angle. And it doesn't make their experience with that any less than. It's just part of this journey of growing and nurturing our souls and our whole existence. So yeah, so just thinking of just how we're in these different spaces of our spiritual growth and evolution.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. I think that's actually the one of the main points of that analogy, that parable, of all animals are geniuses in their own right. I mean, we can't say you're worse, you're better, you're worse, you're better. But that's what they're made to do. And so, as just like you were saying, I'm looking at this also from educational standpoint of teaching the youth and the children and the coming generation and such. It's like, do we test them all on one thing and say, you are bad, you are good, you are deficient, you are amazing? Oh, we were testing climbing trees. Interesting. Right. And so that's I love your comments about that. Each person in their own realm, growing, progressing in different ways. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Well, if I could then, and then I know we need to give Janet an opportunity to speak, but I'm glad that you brought us back to that so explicitly, because that is something that we are challenged with in a lot of educational settings where there are these testing or these assessment practices that are in place that aren't necessarily serving us to expand ourselves really to our fullest potential. And so that is something that we are battling, something that we are facing, which is why this team of art specialists that I'm on, we feel like we have such a unique mission, if you will, to help bring light to these different facets of our students' abilities and who they are, that you're not going to be able to put on a test. You're not going to be able to do assessments in the way that people are used to. And so it really does unlock this part of the soul that is often neglected. And so I'm glad you brought us back to that, Sean.
Yeah, because I know that as we move into this age of enlightenment, as we expand, we're going to completely revamp the educational process. because the education system that we have now was created in a way that prepared people for factory work. And that was during the Industrial Revolution that said, yep, this is how you do it. This is how we train you, and get the students out and ready to work their whole lives in one factory. And we're in a completely new age and a different mentality. And I think the educational system gets to reflect that. And I think you all on this panel are on the cutting edge of that transition into an enlightened way of education. Janet, do you have something you'd like to share on this topic?
Oh, I have tons I'd like to share. The question is, which thread do I pick
Give me a minute. Give me a minute or two of it.
Keep it short, in other words. I want to start by just saying Todd's comment about holding a door for someone else. I can tell you, as a woman, I don't like being in a space where some guy who is physically bigger than I am comes pushing by me and kind of knocks me out of the way. It's such a pleasure to have a guy say, here, may I hold the door for you? It makes my day, frankly, because it puts me in a whole different dynamic with other people. Your initial comment, the I am comment, I am who I am in this moment, but that changes from moment to moment, depending on the what's going on inside me, what's going on outside me, the culture in which I am functioning, the environment within which I am functioning. So I need to simply be aware in each and every moment, as well as I am able. The comment about success, as soon as you start talking about success, that's very goal-oriented. And yes, the mind opposes success to failure. So if we aren't currently successful, we must currently be a failure. So why not just be a success, whatever that means to each person, right here in each moment? And for a minute, since I probably have 30 seconds left, I'd just like to call everybody's attention to this logo behind me, which to me, and there's much more to it than this, which you can find on the Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity.org website. But for me, this is a consciousness diagram. And after we have reconnected with what I conceptualize as a center point, and the circle there is much too large, but it is what it is. It's a timeless, spaceless point of awareness. If we are manifesting, creating, and co-creating outward from that space, each one of us is a different rainbow line going out from that center point. Where we get into trouble is when we get stuck on one of those conceptualizations and say, hey, the way I think about this is the truth, and you better listen to me. That's an old patriarchal structure. We need to both create, co-create, be who we are, our unique persona, but then we also need to connect with the different personas around that circle. And we do that through conscious conversation. We do it through deep listening to another person and then speaking our own truth as clearly as we can. And just real fast, you were asking about education. I'll make this real short, okay?
Well, actually, that's the next question, and we'll just make the rounds on because I would love to hear. We literally only have about 8 minutes, and so because we need a short time for the other speakers to get in and get tested for their mics and such. But so I would love just like two minutes each. If we can look at what I mentioned about education and unity consciousness moving into this new age of enlightenment, I definitely see a change in the educational system, and a lot of it is moving toward less analytical and less structured. This is how it is. Go sit in your class, take a test. You got an A, B, C, D. And it's moving more towards an experiential model. We see the Montessori type things, and we see experiential learning that is coming into it very strongly. You guys are all in the education arena. I would love to hear your comments about how can we evolve the educational system to reach more unity consciousness and enter into this age of enlightenment for the coming generations. You want to go? Yes, go ahead and jump on that. You're on.
Okay. There's a tension between systems thinking and subjective processing. And I think it has to start with the subjective processing. When you're working with systems, you are kind of trying to stand on the outside and put all these living, breathing human beings into your own little conceptual boxes so that everything works. And we see that going on right now with all the technology, but the technology has its own flaws. So just again, getting back to my own particular focus, which is words that work to expand consciousness. I don't like this idea of levels either. I like the idea of we all have some awareness, some consciousness, but how do we expand it out, bigger and bigger and more magnificent? So forms of language, stories, tell your personal story and be honest and vulnerable and share it as appropriate with other people. You may not want to share it with the world because there's some people out there who will start pointing fingers at you, as we're seeing going on in the political sphere right now, and saying, oh, look what that guy did. Shame on him. That just perpetuates the challenge and the separation. So stories, personal stories, first person singular language, questions, really good questions. What do I think? What do I feel? What do I need? What are my choices? What do I need to know? Which is going into the conceptual sphere, the maps, which are fun to play with. And whom can I trust? And then metaphor and analogy as well are just great forms of linguistics. Rather than the didactic teaching can actually get you stuck out of unity consciousness.
Beautiful. Yes, I think the emotional intelligence is going to play a big role in the next style of education. Absolutely. Bruce, Rachel, which one would like to step in?
Okay.
I was trying to say, go for it, Bruce. Yeah, we haven't heard
All
of
right,
it.
so 2 minutes. Here we go. Unity consciousness. This is where I'm going to say I think the greatest and most important skill, one of them, is to be able to live with two opposing ideas at the same time with comfort. So unity consciousness also means disunity understanding. So a couple things. Janet, you talked about how lovely it is when a man opens a door for you. I have also tried opening doors for women, and they're offended by me assuming they can't do it for themselves. So I have to hold both of those notions at the same time, understand that unique person and circumstance for which to behave. I also talk about success and failure. To me, what if you're successfully failing? So Edisonian, sometimes, and I look at life in the two secrets when I boil it down. What's the one thing that if you did it differently would move the needle on everything? And that's very personal. And the universal is, what's the iterative process? How do I fail faster and better so that I can align to the principles of truth and spirit? And I do that by successfully experimenting through my life until I'm aligned to the principles of the moment, which I love. And then to go back to a metaphor that I'll share very quickly, and I do this a lot when I train, and you brought it up just now, Sean, the notion of emotional intelligence. I train this all over the world every week. And let me show you just a quick, this is the wrong deck. Sorry, I just had it up. Okay, here we go. I'm going to slide it real fast. We'll do this 40 seconds, and then I'll go from there. So I often ask people about, wrong one. I'm just going to show it to you and back off here. This particular deck right here is the idea of paradox. which is how do we identify with diversity and inclusion and all those different elements? How do we maintain our individual identities while at the same time holding to the collective good? How do I hold both with comfort? When it comes to leading and following, sometimes I'm leading, sometimes I'm weaving behind, sometimes I'm leading the dance, sometimes I'm being led by the dance. So for me, the idea of unity consciousness is to hold paradox, to help and recognize and value everybody's unique experiment and life, and simultaneously weaving into the collective value of the whole. And if one can maintain their distinct identity and a collective identity, and that we're all committed to every one of our distinct and unique opportunities to fulfill the measure of our unique curation, I think if we can hold that paradox, we can stop being either one or the other. Thank you for letting me kind of share that.
I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Yes, Rachel, please.
Okay, and I'm gonna see how I can keep this like incredibly short because I know other people need to get on here. But so going back to how to create more unity consciousness in education, I feel so blessed to have had the opportunities I have in public education, but also internationally, which Sean, you and I have shared in as well, because I find that the students that I work with and even the teachers, so all of us, it's intergenerational. When we have opportunities to create together, whether that's with a specific art form or just a project, some sort of project where we are working together and creating together, it allows us to practice and experiment, kind of like Bruce was just talking about. We have these opportunities to experiment together and learn to appreciate different opinions and different backgrounds. And some of the richest experiences that I've had in my work thus far really have been when we've been working towards a creative product with classes where I'm working with the teachers and the students, and we have a goal to choreograph something together. And then through that process, there is tension because there are different opinions, there are different students, different thoughts of what should we do with this dance? Where should it go? How are we going to express this? And so there is a lot of tension, but along the way, we come to understand each other and we get to explore new possibilities that maybe at first an individual didn't want to, but because someone else presented this new idea, then they got to experience something new. So by the end of this shared experience of creating something together, we do create that unity consciousness along the way, because you can't just do that by talking about it. You have to have a lived experience. Like you were saying, Sean, experiential learning. You brought that phrase up. So I would say we have to have these experiences of working together, coming to understand each other in different ways in order to create that unity consciousness.
Yes, all the way around. And I love that each of you have touched on the idea that we need to, and we could go into a whole other conversation on this, but we need to be able to allow people to fail and not expect perfection out of them, and then that shuts them down. But say, oh, you failed, good job, you tried it, it didn't work, here you go, try again and see how you can do it better this time. What a powerful, important thing that we need to evolve our education system into. So thank you all for your input, your powerful drop that you're putting into the pond of the world that is rippling out and making a huge difference on this planet. Thank you for being here. And I am excited to see this go on YouTube and each of your sessions be able to, again, spread beyond even those who have been watching it today. So thank you for being here, and namaste to all of you.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thanks, everybody.